were the ones who said it was, well, who basically, oh, you're up. Okay, go.
Okay. Keep talking because let me just sound check us again.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying that they were the ones who, if you found yourself with an unwanted child, you just took it to the trash dump and let it die.
Right.
Because that's what you did. And the barbarians, the Celts in this case,
Mm-hmm.
thought that practice abhorrent because most civilizations at that time were having a difficult, or groups of people, however you want to say what you think they
Mm-hmm.
um, were having, didn't know, famine and disease and skirmishes took down their populations and they didn't always come back.
Mm-hmm.
So they thought that their children were really precious. Whereas the Romans, who were used to getting this Egyptian wheat and having, wine from Spain, let's just, where are we going here? All over the
Mm-hmm.
world, right? On food. And so they didn't, if you lived in Rome, you didn't really starve. Even the emperors made sure you got food. There was a
Mm-hmm.
certain amount of socialism in Rome
Right.
because hungry people revolt. And on that note, are we ready to start the Article 5?
That's a good place. Yeah. The revolution is live, and we don't really have to stay on that topic too much today. Although there's a lot to talk about. I just signed. Oh, should I? I don't know if I should read it first, but
Yes, we always read our Article 5 to keep it
but
alive, even though it is a very long run on sentence. It is, if you listen, absolutely crystal clear.
okay. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or, on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution, when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states, or by conventions in 3/4 thereof, as the one or the other mode of ratification may be proposed by Congress, providing that no amendment which may be made prior to the year 1808 shall in any manner affect the first and fourth clauses in the ninth section of the first article, and that no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. All right. Because that first part is what's really important there.
Because
Two
that stays
thirds,
relevant.
2/3 to call, and 3/4 of the states to ratify. Two
Whether it
thirds,
comes
three
from
fourths.
Congress,
Yes.
whether it comes from Congress, or whether it comes from the states, you still have to have three-fourths of the states, of the several states,
Yes.
ratify it. Why not just say these states and all other future states? I don't know. They never say that. Well, I haven't seen it yet. I need to
No, I
read some
think they
more of
were
the articles.
they were trying to make it as short and succinct as
I
possible.
know. Yeah, I guess. I still think several states is so funny. Anyway.
It is funny. It seems so casual. Several, like, yeah, instead of, or they could have just said United States, however many United States. But
That's what I mean.
maybe to them,
You
several
know.
just had a more specific meaning however many there are at the time, right?
Okay, I'm going with that.
I guess.
Hmm.
So,
I
um,
mean, I don't have anything better. So,
just
we have
before,
big news, right? We have big news?
what is that?
No, you have big news.
Well, I was gonna
As an
say,
Article 5 yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say the House Joint Resolution 48, the We the People Amendment, right, is introduced. Representative Jayapal, um, I guess, has introduced it, and yeah, right before this call, I called my Senate or my Representative, Mike Thompson, gave him a call and just said, and I actually talked to a whatever you call it, an operator, I guess, at his office, um, administrative assistant, I guess, and just said, yeah, leave my name and I'm a constituent, and please co-sponsor House Joint Resolution 48 to end corporate personhood and get big money out of politics, basically. And he said, okay, and so there you go. Yeah, it would be. I was looking at their language for their resolution or for their amendment, and I think it is good language. Yeah, the rights. So, Section 1, the rights protected by the Constitution of the United States are the rights of natural persons only, artificial entities established by the laws of any state. The United States or any foreign state shall have no rights under this Constitution and are subject to regulation by the people through federal, state, or local law. The privileges of artificial entities shall be determined by the people through federal, state, or local law and shall not be construed to be inherent or inalienable. And then there's a section about money is not free speech in regards to campaign contributions and expenditures. And Section 3 is just simply, nothing in this amendment shall be construed to abridge freedom of the press. So there's a whole section just about you cannot infringe the freedom of the press or abridge the freedom of the press. That's pretty thorough. I mean, I like it. I definitely support it. I definitely... Now I wonder, where is it go? How far is it going to go? I mean, because is it going to eventually be up to the states to call a convention to push this if not enough people come on board? I mean, they need 2/3, so that means they need some Republicans, I think, even in the House. I don't think Democrats have 2/3 majority. They have a slight majority.
Yes, so yes,
So I don't
they
know
do
if they
not
can get
hold
congressional
2/3 of
Republicans.
the.
You might be able to get some state Republicans still to support a convention, and that would put pressure on those Republicans from that state to vote for this amendment.
Well, the Republicans are in some ways between a rock and a hard place too,
Right.
the elected ones, because some of them have been talking about this issue. They have sort of run on this populist idea, right, of getting
Mm-hmm.
money out of politics. They don't say it quite like that, like we do, but
Mm-hmm.
they have said, this revolving door or lobbyists, or they'll go after
Mm-hmm.
the lobbyists sometimes too, because they're they know that people do not like
Mm-hmm.
how all of this money is going into politics. I mean, look, if we were to add up what every race in the last election cost us, just 6 months ago, right? That
Mm-hmm.
election, how many billions, how many hundreds of billions? Is there $1 trillion that got spent in the last election?
I doubt a
If we
trillion.
added if you add every senator race, every House of
Oh.
Representative race,
Mm,
every state and local race,
I
oh,
still
I bet
doubt
you
it.
could,
I bet
but it
maybe a
would be
hundred billion.
close.
I'm sure at least 100 billion,
Yeah.
probably, but I doubt a trillion. Maybe 200 billion, 300 billion on the high end. But I mean, it's a crap ton.
It'd
Obviously,
be
it's
interesting to find
ridiculous.
out.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
even know if that.
how much, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Amy McGrath got $50 million
Uh-huh.
for her campaign alone.
Well,
And
I
how
mean,
much did
way too
Biden
much. Yeah,
raise? I'd
obviously. And
have to go I
so
mean, but
this is, but
even so, right.
this is where
Go ahead.
on their amendment, on their HJR for Resolution 48, they have their section 2 is called money is not free speech, and I don't really like that phrasing. I wouldn't go so far as to say money is not free speech, because I think money is free speech in all in
Well,
every circumstance
Uh,
except some. Like
okay.
it has to be regulated. Like you're not allowed to bribe. Money can't be free speech is not for like bribery. You can't use money in any way you
I
please. So
think
there
I
can be
think what she's
laws.
saying. Okay,
Hmm.
I think you and I have a different interpretation of that one, because my interpretation of when you said that was you can't buy speech. Speech is not for sale. To
I
me,
guess
speech isn't for sale, and and that's what they said in the Citizens United, right? Is that the one we're talking about,
all I'm
right?
saying,
The
yeah, it is.
citizen.
It's about Citizens
Oh,
United. It's
okay.
about Buckley v. Vallejo, those older ones. About that's the corporate personhood
Right,
one.
right.
Different Supreme
Yeah,
Court,
okay.
yeah,
Right.
decisions going way back. But so as
A
far as the
hundred to the
language of this,
1900s,
the
early
there's
1900s.
section 2 here. I could read it. It's pretty short, but I have no disagreement with the language. It's just that title, money is not free speech. I would just
I
change that.
know.
But I mean, whatever. The truth is, I don't know that this really has the potential to get
I know.
past Congress. But the way to do it, I think it would be worthwhile to call in and try and get a hold of some Republicans, like try and get into Republican message boards, what have you, the chat rooms on their shows, and just say like, "Hey, are we?" I'm talking about like the so-called populist Republicans or right-wing
Well,
populist
or I
people.
would think even the more local might be the better in a way, because that's where we know
Hmm.
people are the most upset about how much money is being spent
Yeah,
on elections. I mean, even
and the
in
right
a
wing is
small
mad about that
state, to be a
too.
mayor can cost $20,000. For
Hmm.
most people, $20,000 is a lot of money right now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or it could be $50,000 just to be a mayor in a town of 70,000 people.
Hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's like that's a lot of money to a lot of people. So, that you would spend $50,000 to get a job that pays you 35.
Hmm.
Why? Unless you're getting something else. That's, that's sort of where that I think at a local level you could call into a talk radio and talk to them about that type of situation. And we know that there's many cases where many politicians have raised way more money than what they'll ever get in that position. So what is the
Hmm.
reason that they're doing it?
Right.
And even if you say that on a right wing talk radio show, it does not make you a liberal. It doesn't even
Hmm.
make you a non QAnon.
Right. Don't even. I mean, they're gonna know if Pramila Jayapal is the one introducing it. They're gonna know that it's coming from the progressive wing. But I mean, they should know
It
like,
doesn't.
hey, this is one of those things that we can all agree on. But again, I don't like that money is not speech because, and for my reasons, I would like to. I know what a conservative would say, and they'd make some argument about like cereal or soda pop or whatever, their right to use their money as free speech. My point on that is BDS. I want to make sure that no one can say you don't have the freedom to use your money as speech and support whatever political cause you want
Well,
to.
okay, that's, I think, a different sort of thing. And maybe that's is some sort
I
of a
worry that
slippery
somebody wouldn't
slope, but
try and
it's,
down the
I
road
know what
try
you're
and
talking
use that
about
amendment to.
boycotting,
Hmm.
like boycotting. That's how you do your free speech.
It's just like
And a
that the
boycott
headline, just because the
is
headline says
not,
money is not speech. The way that people misuse the Second
it
Amendment.
is an economic situation to
Hmm.
boycott, but a boycott is more than economics. A boycott is also a psychological situation, not just where
But
you're
it's about money,
not spending your money. Right. But you're telling everybody where you're not spending your money.
right?
So you have free speech to say where you're not spending your money. It's a joke. It's a joke.
I know, but I'm just saying. I
I
there as far as their
it's going to be a
language here
hard one.
on
That's about. I
on
agree. They
HR
probably should
48.
have gotten something
And another
less
thing I think they
controversial.
missed, again, I completely 100% support this and I would tell anyone to support it. But I think they also don't address, at least I don't know, it's not, I don't think it's in here, about the revolving door. Something to say that
The
politicians
right
can't
lobbyists.
go, yeah, can't get hired by
Well,
these
because sort
corporations
of
or special interests for 10 years or ever. Like you say, never. I kind of agree, never. I almost think that that would discourage too many people from running. But whatever it is, 10 years or a permanent ban, no revolving door. But either way,
well,
yeah.
I
Oh,
think
sorry.
10 years may not be long enough because you
Sure.
could find things to do, especially now with we know how a party like either the Republican Party or and probably the Republican Party was better at it and did it before the Democrats, maybe not, but that's
Hmm.
something we'd have to look at from a historical point of view,
Mm-hmm.
is to find like jobs for the people that have been loyal to them and good to them and you know what I mean, steadfast to them or whatever you want to say. And I mean, 10 years could not be that long. And in some ways, that's like a term and a half, 2 terms, not even 2 terms as a senator, right?
Right.
So that's what I'm sort of saying is maybe 20.
Yeah.
I feel
20.
better
I could
maybe
see
with
that.
20.
Either way, I support that amendment wholeheartedly. So if we want it to pass, we need to get 2/3 of the House to become co-sponsors or to at least guarantee that they're a yes vote. Then we need to convince leadership to call the vote. Then once it passes, we have to do the same thing in the Senate. And once the Senate passes, then we have to uh,
Call our state
then we go to the
legislators.
states and tell them we want it ratified. And we have to get 3/4 of the states to ratify that amendment. So it sounds
And
extremely
we,
daunting, but once I think it's like dominoes. Once they start to fall, it'll start to pick up speed, and it could happen quickly. You know, once the House passes it, there's significant pressure on the Senate to at least vote on it. And if they vote, they vote it down, I don't know if it has to be repassed in the House. It might just be able to be re-brought up in the Senate. I don't know how that works
I,
on the
I don't
federal
know
level.
because, okay, how does it, like, that's sort of the whole thing when we talk about the 27th Amendment. Isn't that the one that took 100 and, no, 100 and
Yeah, it took 203 years from
203.
1798 to 19 what is it 1980 or 1993, right? Something like that.
Yes, yes, yes.
Hmm.
1993. So yeah, we I don't think we want it to take 203 years to
Yeah,
get this
no.
amendment attached to the Constitution.
And I mean, and that's a if
So
yeah. So
go ahead.
no, I think it's a good one that a lot of people can agree to, and it definitely gets the conversation going. And I think it's important that people understand it's utilizing Article 5, regardless of if it's Congress that's passing it or if it's the states
Ratifying it.
that are calling for a convention.
Ratify. Uh,
Yeah, because either
oh,
way, the
I
states
see.
ratify, right? So it's
Yes, yes.
the calling is happening in Congress right now, the proposing, and it's happening exactly the same way as if a convention were called, because well, although a convention would be there only for that specific uh, issue.
Right, but in a sense, Congress is its own convention,
Yes,
is
exactly.
I believe how the framers looked at it because they are called. They do have every Congress has their time frame, right? You're the whatever number of the Congress of the United States, Congressional Congress of the United
Right.
States, I think it is. So, I mean, I'm sorry if I'm not like up on all of that, but I
No, I
mean, some
mean,
of it I find interesting, and some of it I just it's just such
No,
bureaucratic
I
bullshit
think
to
we
me.
focus so much more on the state side and the of the state's ability to
Yes.
call a convention that we focus less on what Congress's powers are because it's like we have less control over it. Well, it feels like we have less control over Congress. You can have
Well,
more.
it's where we cannot, like, okay, if we want to have an amendment, it seems to be much harder to convince Congress to go along with that amendment, at least for this period of time that we have lived in, which I feel is almost like we've just gone stagnant. Like
Mhm.
America just froze in a certain way in time because the powers that be wanted it to be so.
Mhm.
And which is why we haven't had an amendment for like over 50 years. Since like, what did we decide? 1968?
Uh huh.
When was the last one? 1960, or the one, not the last one, the ones, the civil rights ones,
Yeah, the
the
last one that was
people's ones.
proposed.
Hmm.
One,
I mean,
two.
that's too long. That's too long. Not when
Yeah.
the world is changing so quickly in many ways. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
So that was the
In that,
26th Amendment that was proposed by Congress on March 23rd, 1971, and three-fourths of the states ratified by July 1st, 1971. So from March to July is all it took for the states to ratify.
because the states are very used to having Congress
Yes.
say, look, we want to do this amendment. And I told you that that's what they do. They just like that somehow Congress can make our state legislatures
Uh-huh.
kowtow to them and do what they want, not like us.
That would be an interesting period to research the time from March 23rd to July 1st.
Because, that's not even, LBJ is not in, Nixon is in. I know because I was alive. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
boomer. I throw that in because I want y'all to know I have lived some of the history I talk about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so yeah, once if Congress were to propose it, yeah, I think there's a good chance state legislators. I mean, it makes sense for them to want this. For the state legislators, for sure, to want this 48 HJR 48 because um, if they want to move up or if they want to keep their seat, they're probably tired of fundraising. They want to have like some kind of normal system where it's not all about money.
Yeah, I mean, they say, U.S. representatives are getting really tired of raising money. They spend so much time, like 6 hours of their day is supposed to be spent raising money, which I think that was another thing I think the framers did that was kind of freaking stupid.
Hmm.
That's such a short period of time, 2 freaking years.
Oh, for the
I feel
House.
like if you were gonna do the Senate for 6,
Uh
then
huh.
you should do the representatives at least for 3,
Uh huh.
if not 4. That was my feeling. The only thing I can think of is that they thought that you'd be able to change the House to a different party while the president was in, well, a different you know what I mean, like, you
Yeah,
know.
that's kind
Yeah,
of a nice feature.
like if it's party A, right. But even with 3 years, you could do it. Do you know what I mean? It could be rough in some ways, but
Uh,
it's,
I think your last point just convinced me that it should stay the same. Cause
I think it's too short. They just don't, it
yeah,
just is, because I think they didn't expect them maybe to spend a whole year running for office out of their 2-year term. Although maybe you did that back in the day, because they did do that
uh
kind of
huh,
stuff then too, sort of.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's a tough call. I guess I kind of just because of that fact that you want the House to switch over at least once during the presidency, you know.
But in 3 years, you could do it too, and then it would be on a different
But
cycle. So
but then it would be
sometimes,
different. It would be different for each president, you know, because then one president would only get the next president would only get 1 year, you know, before if the House elected every 3 years. Do you know what I mean? Because you'd have 3 years.
yes.
Yeah, so some presidents would get
And then
screwed.
I'm saying maybe that's a good thing and maybe
Eh,
that's a bad thing, but it'd be interesting. You can't know that until you play it out to some. That
right.
ain't something we can just sit here and make a decision on. There's too many variables on
Yeah.
that to have looked back and seen what happened. Anyway.
Well, we could make decisions about our game. We could talk about that. Uh,
Oh, yes, that's our other good news, our
I'm thinking,
high point.
yeah, we
We're
get
thinking about making a game.
get it out there. I mean, I don't know if I should start trying to mess with it in Dreams VR. I've been playing with that lately. I could try building games. Maybe that would be a good test for me to something to build, or start making it out of paper, basically, just writing cards or printing them out, and just make a board game and like. I think you just basically need to test, you know. And what we really need, I guess, are questions because some of the cards are going to be trivia cards. So questions about Article 5, whether you know the answer or want us to find the answer, those questions can be cataloged and turned into trivia questions for the board game.
Yes, they can.
Yes.
Yes, they can. For you
Cuz
to get more things, to get
yes.
a better level.
Yes.
Because what the idea is that you have to always win. Obviously, no matter where you are, in what situation you are, you must always win the
Hearts and minds.
no,
What are you trying to say? Sorry.
the alliance of an elected official.
Mhm.
Like that's what you're saying. We're saying instead of like with an Article 5, the way that we look at it is you start with the states and you go to the you go to your state legislator and say, I want this, I want a convention to be called to amend the Constitution, and this is the amendment I want it to be called for. We'll just call it, two. We'll just
So
say
say
amendment,
legalize cannabis.
legalize
That's the
cannabis.
easiest
That's
one.
it. Our legalized cannabis one. So then what? And then we follow it up the path of which you have to run all the um, other states to do that and other people in your states to go to each of their legislators and say that, or to go to your state house when this joint resolution has been brought up, because it has to be sponsored by an elected official. That's what I'm
Mhm.
saying. You must always make an alliance with an elected official in order to promote these sort of things. You can't not. You must. Whether it's the alliance is whether you force some, like when they're already elected as a US representative, like you called yours today, saying,
Mhm.
I want you to support that. Then you are making an alliance with him if he does it. You're telling him what you want to do. You're asking for an alliance with them, right?
Mhm.
That's what you're doing. And so, and then you would do that with the Senate, like you said. So we're just doing it in the opposite way, which is you go to the state legislators,
Mhm.
and you have to get a lot of people to do that. You need
It's a
people.
fractal.
You need
The
people.
government system of this country is a fractal. So the states are similar to the federal.
Right.
They're just a smaller version, and it works up and down. You can
In most
propose
cases, yeah.
amendments going up and you can propose amendments going down.
Right.
And
Except, see, like in certain states, it's okay, like New Mexico. We've talked about that before. You can't sign stuff to get stuff on the ballot, or you can't. I don't know if you can even do that in California. I think it has to only amendments to their constitution only come from, like, there's no Article 5 in any of the state constitutions, I don't think. Is there?
I'm sure every state has a different constitution and a different method of
They
amending
do,
it.
so we'd have
That's
to
a good
see, but I
good
doubt that
question.
there is. I've never
I'm sure they're
seen
all
one, and no
slightly.
one ever talks about it.
You'd have to research every state
You would,
because
because
states
they're all
do
different.
there. But I mean, it's still essentially a fractal where each state has its own constitution that
Yes,
can be amended through
yes,
some
yes,
process, however that process
yes.
is. Yeah.
Like, we do get to vote on amendments here.
Uh huh.
And I don't know if they can just add them with the state legislators here. It might always have to go to the public, but it might have to go through the state legislators first to get on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's what we're sort of saying. So it is that it is very similar. The other way is like you're saying when but see, I don't think we'll have to pressure our state legislators as much if this new amendment gets its amount of Congress people it needs
Yeah,
to
you think the state
proceed.
legislators would just fall in and jump in behind it?
Yes, yes,
I would think so too.
yes.
Obviously, the Senate is going to be the biggest hurdle, getting it through the Senate.
Well, it is, and I think that this is a good time that the amendment came because it comes on the heels of the HR 1
Mm-hmm.
and S, what do they call it? The
Yeah,
Senate
SB 1, right? Senate
S
Bill 1. Isn't it?
SB 1. Yes, thank you. Yes,
Yeah, two
because
other
it is about
popular.
sort of the same thing. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
about voting rights and this,
Democracy.
uh, and how that money is just buying our democracy.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been for a long time, but boy, it really got on steroids, I think, around Reagan. And then when they discovered, and then Karl Rove,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that man. Because he is the one that figured out how to do all the state legislatures to have them go and become Republican, and then in a census year when they would be able to draw districts.
Mm-hmm.
That was how that was planned. That wasn't just like a one-step process. No, no. This was a major battle, ladies and gentlemen,
Mm-hmm.
of this war, and he won it. And it I don't know. We can hope that that wasn't our Waterloo.
Him and that guy that came up with gerrymandering, and his daughter or whoever found his papers after he died, right? You heard that
Yes,
story, right?
yes. And she exposed him
Yeah, what was his
because
name?
she was so. I'm trying to
Thomas
remember.
Hoffler. Yeah,
Oh,
Thomas
something like
Hoffler.
that. Something. Yes. But that's what it is that people are feeling, and we have always had a certain amount of corruption, and like one of the things that was good is that Harvey K did sort of set straight that yes, that okay, there was a time in our history, okay, you worked in Chicago, and so basically you went and voted the way you were told to vote, okay, and but the truth of it is that the way you were voting more often was in your own best interest.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't because the unions or whoever was in power and telling you to vote that way knew that they had to take care of you,
Mm-hmm.
or you just switch your allegiance.
Mm-hmm.
So they did try to take care of you. Even we're talking about like the the, Tammany Hall, Tammany.
Tammany.
Tammany Hall, yeah, type of thing, you know?
Yeah.
So, but what goes on now is just on, it's just where an elected official enriches themselves on it. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's one thing to leave office and make some money, but now you're like
Buying
so
stocks in
beyond.
office, using your committee assignment to do insider trading. Both parties doing it. Yeah, I wish that was in the We the People amendment too, but I guess they're trying to
But I'm
keep
just
it
saying this,
on point, basically.
but just this, you know, this corruption, this money corruption that just is so incestuous and so, you know, just circular too. It just,
Mm-hmm.
you know, flows in like one direction. Like I've told you before, it's the DNC with the white consultants.
Mm-hmm.
You know how that all this money gets to the DNC and then they don't give any to the little DNC or weren't for
Mm-hmm.
a long time until they got exposed. And these white supremacists, I shouldn't say white supremacists, sorry, didn't
White
mean that.
consultants. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. White
They
consultants.
are white supremacists too, okay? I'm just going to say it because they didn't think that they should be on top, even running in a black man's race. Be real. If you that ain't white supremacy, what is? These white consultants,
I mean, it's
you
definitely
know,
white privilege.
they get this huge amount of money. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they're taking 90%. Okay, maybe not 90, 70 of the whole budget
Mm-hmm.
for the campaign. That's the point that I'm sort of making. And they don't care and they don't even run a good campaign
Mm-hmm.
because you don't win. And if you don't use them, you don't get that position almost. You don't even get put into the primary. You don't even get, one could go on and on and on. Like a situation that just occurred, right?
Mm-hmm. Which one?
Where the people are not choosing who they want to have in a primary, where some other part of the DNC, little DNC,
Oh,
decided who was going to be on the ballot.
yeah. Yeah, I know. I don't know if we want to get into all that. This show's about
We won't today, but
the
that's just
Constitution.
saying those things are done. And if you think that they're not, it's because you are not looking. You're
I
not
know.
looking.
No, I know. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. Or it's a double-edged attack. A two. Um, what do they call it? A two-faced
Two
war.
prong, a two prong. Oh, a two faced war. Okay,
Attack on
gotcha.
both sides. Basically, like we have to fight on both
Fronts.
theaters. Yeah, the
Yes.
political and the policy. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
because it's just
The policy and
because
the
it gets.
electoral political.
I mean, just like this spin they're trying to do in Georgia on that voter suppression law. You know, I mean, this reminds me of King Leopold II in the Congo. And by all means, if you don't know the history, you should.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it took me a long time to find out about it. I told you that, but I had heard about it and was interested in it because he came after slavery was accepted, but he did the spin that he was saving the souls of the poor savages. And even after his atrocities got found out, he continued to spin that it wasn't anything to do with him, but the natives themselves that were doing all this atrocities to each other.
Mm.
And that's what it really is. That is the most horrible part of this is the spin that just continues and continues and continues on everything. Especially, I mean, in politics, we're talking about in politics and stuff like that. So that's just why I bring that up because it was phenomenal how long he could keep, even after people found out. I mean, we're not talking like, oh, just a couple of years. We're talking like maybe a couple more decades.
Hmm.
So spin, never discount how spin can do, what you need it
Propaganda.
to do.
Yeah, it's like the most
Yes.
powerful force in the world. Propaganda and
Yep.
suppression of knowledge, just in general. Like, because you know, to tie it back to this Article 5, it's suppressed, right? We don't really hear about it. We don't really learn about those histories. I think definitely my education, they shelter you quite a bit from the world history, from the most uh, egregious atrocities like the ones you're talking about, King Leopold and stuff. I mean, they teach you about. I think in the future they'll basically just teach that there was a time in human evolution where there was a lot of horrible violence, and one day we got our shit together. And I don't know when that day will be, and they'll just talk about the old days when things were bad and why it's so much, how they learned to crawl out of that. But we're obviously a long ways off, or it seems like we're a long ways off. Maybe we're not that. Maybe it's a lot faster uh, to go down than it is to go up.
Well, I think the problem is that the heritage that's come of it, like the other real part that they don't talk about the colonialism is they say, oh, well, it ended, but it didn't really because most of
Mm-hmm.
the colonies had to buy their way. Haiti was supposed to pay. Congo was supposed to pay for their freedom
Mm-hmm.
to get, because the Belgian, okay, King Leopold sold the Congo to Belgium for like $500 million. Okay,
Mm.
as the terms of that day, right? So then Belgium said to the Congo, "Well, you've got to pay us that money back." Well, of course, they added interest, being
Mm-hmm.
Belgian and all.
Mm.
So you might as well. And we wonder where payday loans came from.
Mm. I don't know. I didn't know that
I'm
history.
I'm just sort of making a joke about, yeah, you could just, so they have never paid out. They
Mm.
have never paid off their debt. They are still paying
Oh,
their
really?
debt.
Mm.
That's what it said in the one I just watched, the documentary I just watched on it.
Mm-hmm.
I just watched the Vertigo years, but that was not the one about the Congo. I watched the one about the Congo after that, and one about Cambodia after that. And that's really awful too. America is really awful. Really awful. Really.
Agreed. Well, we should probably wrap it for today. Um,
Yes.
it's been good
So we're
talking to
asking
you.
you to call all your representatives, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're going to say, right? Call all your representatives. Your
Solidarity
U.S.
with Move
reps
to
to tell
Amend.
them
Just
to
Google,
move to them.
yeah, just go to movetoamend.org, and I'm pretty sure, oh yeah, movetoamend.org/amendment, and then you can sign the motion to amend. You put in your name, email address, and your address, and it'll tell you who your representative is. It'll send them a message with your email, and it will give you their phone number to call. It's real easy, and you just tell them. It gives you a little script. It's very easy.
Be a part of history.
Mm-hmm.
You can be a part of history that will be known forever, as
Yep.
long as America still lives. Okay, but we'll say forever. But that is it, because you are amending the Constitution,
Mm-hmm.
something that has not been done for a very long time,
Yep.
even from 19, I mean, almost 30 years. Many people have been born that have no idea
Mm-hmm.
about the amending of a Constitution.
It's all in
I
Article
mean, it's a
5.
big deal. Yeah.
So keep hope
Keep
alive.
for the Article 5.
Okay, now you
Is that
say
it?
it
Keep hope alive.
with Article 5.
With
Okay.
Article 5. See?
We'll practice that. Sounding better. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye. Oh,